Hi, this is video number 4 in a series where I am interpreting all of the verses from Jesus in this series right here from Matthew, from the Sermon on the Mount. I've already done the Sermon on the Plain in one series and the Gospel of Thomas in another series, Jesus' Pivotal Collections. This is his biggest piece of work in Matthew, again, the Sermon on the Mount. So I'm going to talk about what I'm doing here, and it's a very common process from antiquity for interpreting verse, making it about yourself and playing it out in the psyche. That's what I'm doing with Jesus' work, assuming that if I treated it like Buddha, when I interpret that I might come up with the same thing. And guess what? Sure enough, I found the Buddha that Jesus became. So, my name is Dan Paulson. Welcome to the video. I'll post a link to the 4 below. And what I'm going to do is back up just a little bit in this one. I went down to verse 36, I think, and there's actually a larger chunk there that I want to go back and make sure I have all of that in one piece under concerning oaths. So let's go ahead. That's where we are now. And I'll let you know when I'm done here what interprets our personal interactive steps for my self-healing. That's what emerges from these verses. And for anybody else who finds that path and that interpretation process, you will find instructions in here to heal yourself. Let's get started. Okay, it looks like it was actually verse 33, concerning oaths. All right, again, what I have here, all of the red is what Jesus says. This is the teachings of Jesus. These are the cryptic verses, what he is talking about. The blue are my notes, or notes that were added in by the translator of this version of the Bible. Concerning oaths, for example, here that was added in by a translator to section out this piece. It does not exist as part of the original story or Bible. So those are added in. I've got them in blue. And then where I've got it in green here is my plain language interpretation of the red verse. So, okay. With that having been said, let's get started. I've got verse 33 through 37 here. All is about concerning oaths. So I'm going to read the whole block and then go into an interpretation process. I'm going to talk about a lot of things here that I go through mentally. All right, so it says again, you have heard that it was said to those of ancient times. Okay, remember we're hearing this 2,000 years ago. When he's referencing ancient times, he's referencing back in early Jewish days. This is the Abrahamic line of material. They're the Jewish people. He's talking about Moses and the law of Moses and the way the Jewish people live. Okay, so again, you have heard it was said to those of ancient times, you shall not swear falsely, but carry out the vows that you have made to the Lord. Okay, so that's what the Jewish people were told. Do not swear falsely, but carry out the vows you've made to the Lord. Then Jesus, so that's something right there we're going to pay attention to. That's not an instructional piece. He's like, this is like an if-then. You have heard it said of ancient times, it was once this, it is now this, or, once now, something like that. We're going to see a step process. This is turning from outward looking or from the past to the present. When it says, but I say to you, right there, we have our encoded message coming in. Do not swear at all, either by heaven, for it is the throne of God. Now, all of this is going to be cryptic. They're all analogous terms. They do not mean what they sound like. Do not swear at all, either by heaven, for it is the throne of God, or by the earth, for it is his footstool, or by Jerusalem, for it is the city of the great king. And do not swear by your head, for you cannot make one hair white or black. Let your word be yes, yes, or no, no. Anything more than this comes from the evil one. Okay, this is a translation that's how it would sound in the church if you're being taught this by the scribes or the Pharisees are reading this to you and teaching you what the Bible says and interpreting it for you. And that's what they've told you. Now you're trying to figure out what it means. But Jesus has come along and told us, the scribes and the Pharisees don't know. You have to know more than them. So we're going to go our own path here. And I'm going to take this and think that all of these terms are analogous for something in my psyche, in my life, that this is a pathway for me to take inward. However, it's written in a way that is facing outward. The masses carry it, but if you stop, grab it, convert it, turn inward, you find a pathway to your beginning into healing. This may sound strange if you don't follow my work, but really I see this story is built on a template of my life, but it's turned inside out and then put in some kind of stories that I would follow. But if I interpret those, I find out if I turn it inward with that material and convert those stories back to their original form, they become a pathway for me to my inner self, to my inner peace. Okay, so I'm going to start on my notes, and I'm talking about the first verse up here, 33. Again, you have heard that it was said to those of ancient times, you shall not swear falsely, but carry out the vows you have made to the Lord. Again, this references Judaism and the Torah's teaching. The Christian conversion is not complete, but is clearly well underway. Pharisees teach and interpret the scripture for the people. Pharisees are Jews. Jesus seems not fond of the Pharisees. He is shifting their teaching and updating the religion. The nested teachings will remain the same, but Pharisees don't know the nested teaching. They are like priests, ministers, preachers. I'm going to say practitioners of the religion, etc. They teach the supernatural carrier shell, not knowing what is nested deeper, the inner pathway. Jesus does know this. He's not teaching Christianity. Do you know the religion? That was Paul. Paul who said, I met him in a vision after he was dead, many years later. Yeah, there you go. That's where we learn about Jesus, from that story. We should be able to see holes in this and see what is really there. Okay, this is simply replicating what to them was already an ancient teaching, which admonishes the Jews to maintain their commitments they make to God. It sounds like a trade or a barter is happening. Something we might today be like, God, if you just get me out of this mess I promise to, fill in the blank. Leads into Jesus's cryptic teachings and shifts from the physical interpretation to an inner mental one. Okay, so the Jewish teaching was don't make commitments like that. Don't promise to God and then not keep your promises. Always keep your promises if you say that. Don't do that falsely. That's an outward-looking thing. That's part of the religion. When you convert it to the psyche, this is where it becomes cryptic, and this is what it comes out like. It's a cryptic teaching and shifts from the physical interpretation to an inner mental one. This is teaching us an analog form from Judaism to maintain one mindset. Think of the verses about one sheep or one fish that is the most important. It is a committed and non-wandering mind state. It is purity by ridding divisions, held in verbiage that was already there about 1,500 years old in Jesus' time. Anyway, this is, he's just telling them, you were told to keep your promises. That's fine. But I say to you, so we want to know this next part. What does this mean now? Do not swear at all, either by heaven, for it is the throne of God. Now it goes into something that sounds a little different. We have to interpret this. Okay. Jesus' lesson takes over. He isn't negating the old one. It too requires interpretation, but the analogs are too outdated unless one remains Jewish. Jesus's is a new way of saying it. So let's start by identifying the analogs and what they mean. I've got swear, heaven, and throne of God. Those are what are they in there? Do not swear at all. What does swear mean? Is that physical? Is that spiritual? What does that mean? By heaven. Swear either by heaven. Isn't heaven a place you go to forever afterward? You look at that and go, boy, you gotta do something with this, don't you? Okay. Swear, heaven, and throne of God. This goes in the mind, not in the air. I'd like to work it backwards. I'm not sure if it's right. It's just how it works in my head for interpretation. I know what God is. That's the higher awareness as well as all the cosmic energy we work with to create our lives, regardless of what that life is. We create our lives all the time through storing emotional perceptions of experiences. Then we live through them. We do this first in life while not being aware of that. Most people never become aware of that. God creates the good and the bad. Genesis 12, the call of Abraham. This is the calling of Abram, line of monomyth, starting after the flood. God is being identified. God is calling Abram to be the father of gods, now called Abrahamic religion or Judaism. Verse 3 right here. Yeah, that's what it's happening right here. This is what it says. I will bless those who bless you, and the one who curses you I will curse. There's good and bad. God provides both good and bad. God provides good and bad. Parallel this with the Tao Te Ching. Verse 6. The Tao is called the Great Mother, empty, yet inexhaustible. It gives birth to infinite worlds. It is always present within you. You can use it any way you want. Our life becomes a product of the way we use our life experience, our energy for life, and we do that through our memories and perceptions of those memories, and we get hurt by those. Okay. Let's look at this for a second. This represents the cosmic source we emerge from but are always in. We cannot create our life and what we become without using energy to do so. In physics, this is called the conservation of energy, and it is absolute. We just don't tend to apply it to ourselves, but we need to. All the energy we use to create a life of joy or a life of hell comes from there, and that is also God. God blesses or curses. We decide, we just don't know that at first. So what then is God's throne? That's your higher awareness, where we reside. This is where we really exist from if we can get out of our stored, judged, hurtful memories. Heaven is the mental space where we feel good, free from the bondages from our past. Kingdom of heaven, nirvana, enlightened. Swearing was the same as above, making a promise to yourself that you don't keep. So if we run this forward again with those interpretations laid out, it started off like this. But I say to you, do not swear at all, either by heaven, for it is the throne of God. I changed that to, but further, do not make any false conscious promises to yourself. This would include, for example, maintaining intentions that are never fulfilled, existential suffering, desire to change but never changing, and so suffering as a result. We don't know what to do. Take no thoughts of tomorrow. Live in the moment. We habituate failure when we practice this. Let's talk about that for a second. Just some, real things. Let's see. I drink a bottle of wine a night. No big deal. Creeped up there. But now it's been going on for a few years, and boy, I gotta quit. It got to much of a habit. I see it got away from me. I'm gonna quit. I don't have any wine in the house. Tonight, later, I go get a bottle going, okay, you know what? One more night. I'll do it tomorrow. Tomorrow, get another bottle. I'll do it the next day. Tomorrow, another bottle. I'll do it the next day. Relationships. I got to leave this. I got to get away from it. I hate this. I don't like it. I need to get away. I need to get away. I'm back into it. I need to get away. These things that we're doing are causing us to habituate those very things right there. We need to quit. If you're not going to go someplace, don't even say you're going to go someplace. Don't build in the failure mechanism. Just say, I'm stuck here right now. At least that's true. Come up with a game plan for escape or do something different. But don't habituate the failure by saying, I'm going to do this and I don't. I'm going to, I can't make it. That's just so wishy-washy, and it's not, we need to commit. That's what this section is going to be about here for. Committing to the changes that we make and sticking to it. Because if we don't, we're failing through the habituation of the failure itself by allowing that to happen. There's a point in Aristotle's teaching where he gets to the greatest good is happiness, but there's a number of things that prevent you from getting there. And when all of those are set aside, if there was one more, he said that there's another reason that if you can't find happiness, sometimes you know what to do, you're not doing the right thing. And the reason for that is because of just lack of moral courage, lack of being able to say, I'm not doing this anymore. I don't care. I'm not going to go get that bottle tonight. I'm not going to go back and visit this person. I'm going to sever these things. I'm going to do something here. I'm going to stop habituating. I'm going to make a commitment and stick with it. Okay, that's what I wanted to say about this. It sounds kind of floaty out there. You bring it in and you put it into real life. Even my interpretations are kind of hard to understand sometimes. Then you work the interpretation through your mind and say, how does it apply to my life? This is telling me right here that if things aren't okay and I know what to do, then to do what I need to and get beyond it as quickly as possible. That's going to be a hard process. But if you don't, you're going to be stuck in what is going on. So it's teaching us all of that stuff, which is kind of like, oh, that's a curse if you don't like to hear it. I don't want to do that. It's hard. Don't watch any more of the video. Okay, let's get back to it. Actually, you know what? I'm going to read something from the Four Agreements. Do you know this book? I had it posted recently, but I had to take it down because I can't post the whole thing. One of the first things he talks about, though, in the Toltecs is that there's a commonality that they knew about, a wisdom throughout the ages that was common. And right here, the first agreement that he has that's listed from the Toltec wisdom is called, be impeccable with your word. The first agreement is the most important one and also the most difficult one to honor. It is so important that with just this first agreement, you will be able to transcend to the level of existence I call heaven on earth. The first agreement is to be impeccable with your word. It sounds very simple, but it is very, very powerful. Why your word? Your word is the power that you have to create. It goes on. I'm not going to read more on it, but that is right here. He's talking about the commonality, and he's exactly right. And there's the commonality. This is teaching us to be impeccable with our word, or to be consistent, to be very focused, to be laser focused on what you want. Remembering now, this is 2,000-year-old material. We have different, you have to look at today and go, wow, how do I apply this to my day-to-day living? What do I do? Okay, so there we have it. We left off this right here. There's more to it. Actually, the only verse, really, the verse says this, but I say to you, do not swear at all, either by heaven, for it is the throne of God. My reply should only be, but further, do not make any false conscious promises to yourself. Higher self, any self. Yeah, don't make conscious false promises. And then the rest of this doesn't need to be there. That's additional that I've added on to explain. But the verse is simply this short piece right here. Okay, then it moves on to the next part, though. So you're not going to swear by heaven, for it's the throne of God, or by earth, for it is his footstool, or by Jerusalem, for it is the city of the great king. So now we've got earth, footstool, Jerusalem, and which is the city of the great king, all showing up here that we know are analogous terms that we have to identify as some component part of a psyche and a hierarchy within the psyche, between the higher self, the consciousness, the subconscious, the memories, the flow in life, all of that. Okay, the analogs we have are this: earth, his footstool, Jerusalem, and great king. Earth is below heaven. In a mental hierarchy, if heaven and earth are used, this is like God and man, or higher self and conscious self. The higher self can be lived in, but it cannot take over our consciousness. Heaven is where our thoughts and feelings reside in our experience. Heaven is where our thoughts and feelings reside. They're not stored there. Heaven is where our thoughts and feelings, that's where we experience them, is how that should be worded. And thoughts and feelings. Is that better? Heaven is where our thoughts and feelings are experienced. Heaven is our state of being. Earth represents our physical experience. We have to use our now aware consciousness to undo what the unaware consciousness has done in the past. Judge. The only difference is we are now becoming aware of that. We use our higher awareness to understand, but it cannot take over and run our life for us. We must use conscious choices and awareness to put it in charge. The higher awareness must be accepted into the consciousness simultaneously with hurt memories for healing, but consciousness has to do this and be ready to feel all the feelings without stopping them. Let's talk about this. I can explain what this means. Everything we experience is through our conscious, whether it's coming from our memories or from just the moment or from thinking about what is, or existentially, what we believe is going to happen. That all of that is occurring in this place in our consciousness, but there's different elements to us. Now, there's a part of us that we can step outside of ourselves and be outside of the emotions. We experience this when we wake up in the morning and we're wrestling. Our consciousness is suffering and we have some turmoil going on that we can't resolve. But there's that conscious part of us that steps in once in a while and goes, you know what? It's 3 a.m. There's nothing you can do. Why don't you sleep? But then we go fall right back into the feelings and we lose that right there. But that part right there, that's our higher awareness showing up. It's kind of letting us know it's there, but we don't recognize it. It cannot come in. That right there cannot come in and take over and say, you know what? Sit down, shut up. I'm taking over. I'm going to take care of this for you. That won't happen. You have to consciously understand what's going on, have all the tools and go, okay, this is the place right here where everything is experienced. So that means I'm going to have to take the memory I don't like and bring it right here. And I'm going to have to bring the higher consciousness and bring it right here. While I am consciously going through the emotional experience, I'm simultaneously going through the higher awareness of letting it happen. All of that has to be blending at the same time. So that's what I mean when the higher awareness can't take over. The conscious is in charge of everything, but the knowledge that we have is what gives the consciousness the tools to act, to work, to function, to manipulate, to change memories, to really look at what's going on. And the core reality is we've had life experiences that we are judging in an emotional way. And that emotional way that we're judging them is what we are wanting to resolve. That is what we are experiencing in a derogatory manner that we're living through. All right, make sure it doesn't sound like I went too far off the rails. Back here, again, we're talking about the higher awareness must be accepted into the consciousness simultaneously with the hurt memories for healing. We have to watch them come. We have to watch them go. We're going to experience our hurt self as we're trying to heal our hurt self, as we are taking that hurt memory and addressing it with a higher consciousness, saying, hey, you're going to be okay. Your future is going to be all right. It'll turn out for you. Well, it has to get there. There's a path along the way. Hopefully you're that far along. You have to leave the past and the cyclical pain first to move on to that. But the consciousness is in the driver's seat at all times. Our higher awareness is a great tool, but it cannot take over. It has to be employed. It has to be understood. It exists prior to our consciousness. We're trying to rectify conscious things that are now subconscious stored, that continually become conscious. We can't do that by allowing something else to take care of it for us. We have to do it. Okay, Jerusalem is used as the city name because that's who the story is for. Yeah, the Jews. A much earlier version of this universal teaching was built using Babylon as the city. This is a common spiritual teaching technique. The city relates to the bundle of memories that I am. That is where I live, within the metaphoric walls of my beliefs. Meanwhile, the teaching is simply being nested in an updated manner in their local culture. Bad cities like Jericho get destroyed. This is analogously no different than destroying the bad world with a flood. They all relate to us managing our past. If I'm carrying this version of the Jesus monomyth back then I'm a Jewish person following Jesus' teachings. The king rules the city. That would be like Marduk in Babylon. It is our consciousness in control of our life experience, the called self-awareness. Okay, so heaven is throne of God. God is higher awareness. Throne is mental location, and heaven is where higher awareness and conscious experience allows inner peace. Heaven is a state of being. I feel good. It's nirvana. It's a mental space. Sounds like a physical location, but it's an experience. It is a living experience. Earth is our physical experience. As a footstool, it represents what the self stands upon. My earth, through my mental judgments and perceptions, resolved and unresolved. Jerusalem is the city we wish to become. We are Jews. Hearing this, the analog means your inner structure of memories. Okay, so it says, and do not swear by your head, for you cannot make one hair white or black. I changed that to, boy, this is kind of a struggle pushing these out, honestly. Physical, this verse combination went from do not swear by heaven to earth to head. The entire set is telling us to not make promises in any manner about change and then not follow through. But it's heaven, earth to head. There is that sequence in there. Don't make physical promises, mental promises. Just don't say or do anything that is not true, that's not real, that isn't committed. So then there's the next one. Let your word be yes, yes, or no, no. Anything more than this comes from the evil one. We've got yes, yes, no, no, evil one. Evil one is just what doesn't work right. It sounds like the devil if you're looking outward, but when we look inward, we know that there's no demon in there taking over us, that the problems that we have that reside within us that we need to resolve come from not being able to make a commitment to yes or no. Commit and stick to the commitment. Do not be wishy-washy. Do or don't, and do not live with the internal conflict of a failure cycle. Okay? So if I was to put them all together, it would sound like this. We have learned from antiquity not to make promises to God without keeping them. But further, do not make any false conscious promises to yourself. This verse combination went from not to make promises in any manner about change, then not follow through. Yeah, that's I haven't quite got that one nailed down very good. I get the gist of it. The not hair, one hair, white or black, left, right, up, down. Maintain balance. Commit and stick to the commitment. Do not be wishy-washy. Which is, we know that to be a common teaching in other areas, and just as recently as the Four Agreements from the incredible, I really love Don Miguel Ruiz's work. That's very concise and simple. And this fits right with it. This is what he's talking about. This global underlying knowledge is right here. This is it. It turns inward. It's about us. Okay, next we move into concerning retaliation. You have heard that it was said, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. But I say to you, do not resist an evildoer. But if anyone strikes you on the right cheek, turn the other also. And if anyone wants to sue you and take your shirt, give your coat as well. And if anyone forces you to go 1 mile, go also the second 1 mile. Give to the one who asks of you, and do not refuse anyone who wants to borrow from you. Okay, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth is from the ancient teachings calling for equal punishment based on the level of the crime. This is from the physical world, and it is interpreted that way. It won't fit the healing teaching because we're supposed to stop fighting our inner issues as a step to healing. This issues punishment where we internally need forgiveness. So it's physical, but then it switches to the inner spiritual hurt, or let's interact with it by identifying it as the mind and the memories. Do we resist an evildoer in the physical experience? Yeah, we better, lest evil hurt the innocent while we turn a loving blind eye. We do not allow evil to hurt us, or we give up our own freedoms. Therefore, what is an evildoer? Why are we to not resist one, and in fact are instructed to be very passive sounding? I should stop for a moment and pause and say we need to differentiate here between, if I don't mean, there's something to be said for emotionally being the epitome of love, because that is what you experience life through. That's how you're going to flow through life when you feel good. When you're harboring something that is an angst and a hurt and an anger and a judgment, that is going to be the flow. So even though those hurt things are going on, you don't want to attach to them emotionally, but you don't want to allow them to hurt other people emotionally. There's a point where it's easy for us to say, you know what, acting kind does the job. If you're in the right place with the right situation, it doesn't work globally. And you can look through history and see that there are times where the passive people are just gone, or they couldn't fight back. People, when they want your resources, tend to demonize you, regardless of you saying, I love you, I love you, I love you. Yeah, there's a point where that doesn't work. I want to say that here. But you don't want to get wrapped up in emotions, because the emotions you experience, the ones you feel, are the ones you're living through and guiding through. That's why it's important to be in control of them. The evildoer is the unresolved memories we hold in the memories. When we resist them, it's a part of making them stronger, and we don't know that. It's natural to resist them because we don't like them. We resist the perception of the memory. And that right there is what gives it its life and its power. How we create and hold it. How we morph and manipulate the perception over a lifetime to make it stronger while unaware of this process, or when we become the called one, to learn to morph the perception in order to ease it and to heal. We don't allow someone to hit us and simply turn our face and allow them to hit us again unless we're stuck victims who can't find a way out. People from all of recorded history who fought back against their oppressors have still been made slaves. How much more so for those who do not fight back? Yeah, the Dalai Lama's lived his life in exile, turning the other cheek. No, this isn't it. We are to stop fighting ourselves, and this means the memories that we deny and or live hurt through. We must learn to manage them differently and actively in order to heal. It's a mental process. So that would be an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. But I say, do not resist an evil doer, but if anyone strikes you on the right cheek, turn the other also. This is getting into a healing process, and how when something emerges from us, you know how hurtful it is, and how when we're done, how difficult we are. God, I can't believe I did that. I'm such this, I'm such that we're very difficult on ourselves, and that we're actually caught up in something, that we are like split. Something is acting out of us that we hate. We're not in control of it. And once it's done and it goes away, the real us is sitting there going, why did that happen? Okay, so if you know that experience, you know what is happening in this material here. Okay, now this step is not complete, but what it's telling us is as part of the healing process, is that we're going to learn and we're going to understand that the level of emotion and the style of emotion, the shame, the anger, the hatred, the whatever it is that we hold towards that memory, is its very power source. We're going to find that cryptically yet very literally and easy to see in something like judge not, lest you be judged. For the judgment with which you judge, you will be judged likewise. That cause and effect is happening there, and the nature of it is based on the way you hold it. That is what we're fighting inside, and when we fight it, we're holding it. We don't know it. We have to find ways of making friends with that to ease it instead of hating it, which makes it bigger. That sucks, but that's what we have to do. Seriously, the reason it's there is because we judge it. So if we want it to go away, we must unjudge it. So when we're hard on ourselves, we're making it bigger. We have to learn to extract how this growth is happening, and how we are growing neural networks by experience something over and over again without realizing that, and that we need to extract ourselves from that by knowing that and stop doing that. Now, next we have, and if anyone wants to sue you, take your shirt and give your coat as well. Let's look at this. Giving up garments in Jesus' material is to uncover oneself from the hurt of the memories. That is where forgiveness makes a difference in our life, where we live through our mind's eye. Life unfolds from these. Adam and Eve were naked until the first sin, then covered their shame. Noah was naked and buzzed off of new life experience after the flood, but out of shame, he was covered back up. In the Gospel of Thomas, we're taught that we will see the kingdom when we remove our garments and place them under our feet. We rise above them and use them and do so by stripping them off. Here we have the same concept, removing what covers us. Naked in the spiritual realm or mental experience is a good thing. It means I'm okay with everything I carry inside of me, and I hide no shame. Let me put this one to personal experience, okay? When I was young, I left home as a young teen and lived on the streets for a while, was taken off the streets, and I got molested. And for many years in life, that was never going to be something that was ever going to be told. I held shame that you could not believe. So I was covered, and in covering that, I also acted out because of the shame that I held for that, or held because of that experience. So whatever I was holding inside of me continued to act out. At some point, I am said to be spiritually covered by something. I am hiding behind a wall of something that is based in shame because of an experience that I don't want anybody to know. So this shame and this lashing out, this whatever this is the covering. You could call it a wall, a shell, or something like that. But basically what it means is that you've got a part of you that you don't want anybody to know about because of something that has an emotional feel to it. And what we don't realize is that emotional feel that we're hiding away is causing our life to continue to be a part of our life. So at some point you go, oh, I have to figure out how to get past the shame, get past this experience, have it behind me so that I'm no longer covered by it. So that's what I understand, that I've got to admit to it. I've got to look at it. I've got to understand some things. I've got to realize that it's common. I've got to understand that, I was taken off the streets because I was a kid that couldn't take care of myself. I probably would have died. No, I wouldn't have preferred that, but I'm okay. There's ways of going, you know what? You're coming through life. What are you going to do? Let what happened destroy your future or find a way to emerge beyond it? The fact that I can talk about it now means that I am uncovered from it. I am no longer covered by it. That's how this works. And of course, they're using shirt and coat as, in modern translations, it would originally be, cloak, however they translate. Back then, it would be whatever your initial robes are, and then there would be a thick covering over the top of that. If it was cold, you'd have it would be almost like a small blanket you'd wrap around yourself as your outer garment. That if somebody wants, your smaller garment, then give the bigger garment as everything, just uncover it. So if you can envision that, they're just using that as an analogous example of how can we represent this idea of covering yourself. There we go. Covering up your body, covering yourself up. Okay. The analogs in verse 40 then I've got here is this. Anyone is the acting out issue, like ought against one's brother, or also known as strong man. It will come from prior experience, the weed. This will be the acting out issue that will come from previous experiences with someone, things that are unresolved. So if anyone sues you, if something holds you accountable, to sue is to hold accountable. It emerges and hurts you. Give shirt is to resolve whatever that issue is covering. Learn to heal that hurt and do so. We do that by observation. We typically have a number of things that we have to resolve. And by observing the way that it comes out of you, you understand the nature of where it's coming from, and you go, boy, I'm responding this way, which is wrong, and it's because of something that happened in my past that I've gotten resolved, that I don't have taken care of. And I know now that if I take care of that, it's going to change what is happening. So that is giving your shirt to what is to anyone that is suing you. That is resolving. And I'm suggesting this because that's the only way it's going to work in the psyche. If you play it outward, you would look at this and go, why is this a spiritual teaching? It's not, it's like, it may or may not even apply. But if you translate it in the psyche, it will always work exactly this way, that these are just analogous terms that they're shifting all over the place, carrying the same meaning. Giving the coat as well, then, means to give up all your other coverings. Remember the goal, the kingdom of heaven or nirvana, mental peace and ease. Remember, Jesus cleared out the whole place while others did it only partially. If you recognize that from the Gospel of Philip. Giving up your coat is uncovering. It is a mental ease by letting go of the emotional charge of memories. Cleared out the whole place is clearing out all of the hurt memories, not just a few. These are the same. Resolve some or resolve all. Now, going the extra mile seems to be a learning process in action. It's becoming aware of what we need to do and how we need to see life. These stories play out in the mind, in the imagination, but they are intended to teach us about our questions in life, about us as human beings. So I said this set of verses is actually teaching us about healing, not judging is and turning the other cheek. I got this worded weird. Not judging is and turning the other cheek is all about our inner. Okay, I've been modifying this, and I don't have it worded. Not judging and turning the other cheek is all about inner enemies. Okay, there we go. Yeah, that's what we don't judge, and that's what we turn our other cheek to, is the inner enemies. The interpretation of this verse fits in with that theme of inner healing. Yeah, this verse right here is about going the extra mile. It's telling us how to understand we are involved in a process of cause and effect. We see the other person, then beyond them, and so forth. We need to get mentally outside of our own victim status and see that we are but a small part of a larger picture. We need to become part of that bigger picture. Seeing from a distance puts us way outside of our limited mental conscious memory grasp that memory has on us. We begin to realize and understand that we're easily bigger than our many issues. Not refusing someone who wishes to borrow from you is... I put question marks there. I'm not quite sure what borrow means as an analog. It sounds like a repeat with different analogs. Who is borrowing from you could mean the same thing as the one who is suing you. The one who borrows takes your life off target from its time, for its time, during its time while it's emerging. While it is active, you are not on course. We've got cyclical problems. Repeats are common, but just starting up here in the Sermon on the Mount and more to come. Yeah, there's going to be repeats of teachings in here that are worded in different ways. And that's kind of what this one sounds like right here. If someone that wants to borrow from you, don't give in to them. I mean, just let them have it. Or someone that wants to sue you, give your shirt to them. You see, it's both of them are doing the same thing. Just give in. Don't fight whatever is coming after you is the background concept there. And if we apply that to our psyche, it means whatever is coming out of you, we fight them and we give them their life in doing so. We need to stop doing that and start looking at them in a different way. This is going to be teaching us that, but we'll get through it and see here. It's a body of work. It won't come out in a single couple of verses. So I've gathered it all together here, and I'm going to read the red part first and then go back and read the green, which is my interpretation. Okay, you have heard that it was said, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. The teachings from old say balance justice evenly. But I say to you, do not resist an evildoer. Remember, an evildoer is from your inner hurt. But if anyone strikes you on the right cheek, turn the other also. This is inner action acting out. But I say, stop denying your inner hurt. Do not fight against the inner hurt as it emerges. See it as you realize it's a part of you. And if anyone wants to sue you and take your shirt, give your coat as well. If it emerges, resolve what causes it to cycle, and resolve everything else too. And if anyone forces you to go 1 mile, go also the 2nd mile. If anyone in your life leads you to have an experience that you now have in memory that you are holding on to that is hurtful, understand this experience has a cause before it came into being. We are in a chain and we need to escape. Give to the one who asks of you and do not refuse anyone who wants to borrow from you. Give in to what emerges. This does not mean leaving them alone or allow them to just be as they are. It means stop fighting them and realizing they are now residing within you. Fighting against them makes them grow in the same manner that we fight against them. They become our enemy as we hate them. But it's us hating them. They are a memory and a perception. They are being created by us. We need to know that. It gets tricky because all of life continues to unfold and you're looking at things out there going, why is life not okay? Why did these things keep happening? And not until you realize that this is what you continue to fit with and you continue to get triggered with. And if you don't want life out there to be that way anymore, you have to stop looking at life and go, oh, it's up here. That is a difficult transition for people. It's in perceptions. It's in memories. You're not looking out there going, I want that to happen. That's not what I mean. That out there is happening in a way that we deny, that we don't like. It's a part of our denied experience. And when we become aware of that, then that's where we start looking at things and going, okay, I have to start being easy on myself. You sit there and stew and go, God, I hate this. I hate that. God, I do this. I do that. This is really bad. That is what we do. We have to go, whew, I'm just a product of my experience. I got to let myself off the hook. The more I hate what happens, the bigger it gets. That's a difficult thing to unhook from because you don't want to like what happened. But you have to understand that life continues to unfold based on the nature of the stored memories, period. It's not anybody's fault. That's the way it works. If you want out of it, you have to go, oh, I get that, and turn inward like other people and go, okay, I'm going to resolve these things that hurt me. I'm going to find a way to let them go. If you don't find a way to let them go, they are with you. They will continue to act out and control and dictate your life or parts of your life until they are resolved by looking at them. Okay, and you understand what I mean. In its simplest form, our thinking and our emotion that we're harboring at any point in time, stop and think how it feels, how it is. That's coming from you. It's coming from a blend of memories. And the more you sit with that, the more you feel that, the more you stew with that, the more you become that. It continues to grow, whether just by the act of going through it mentally. We're no longer going through the physical experience, but the mental experience is feeling and causing us to be the same way. We're a learning creature. However, we're learning something that's not good. We don't need this for our survival, but it's a part of the mechanism that makes us human. We need to understand we're using a survival mechanism for now fear and something else. We're hiding things that are hurting us, not helping us. It's turned backwards, if that makes sense. Okay, so really, then the idea here is that the way you hold your experiences in your emotion is the way they are being made and created by you. And you are feeling them that way, and you are creating them that way. And I am too, but we don't know that. We just don't like it. It doesn't feel good, and we don't know. We have to go, oops, stop, figure out something, and we got to let this go as soon as possible. We need to extract ourselves from it. Okay. I bet you that go 1 mile and go a second mile interprets something a little bit different than what I said. I'm going to grow with this stuff. It's going to change. It seemed to be a little out of place with the rest of this flow right here. This is about inner things. Go 1 mile. Give up not just your coat, but your cloak. Go 1 mile. Someone forces you to, that's it. Okay. I've just changed my interpretation of that one. I'm going to go back and reword it here. Going 1 mile. If somebody sues you for your shirt, give up your shirt and give up your coat as well. If somebody forces you to go 1 mile, go 2 miles as well. That's what's happening. Don't just take care of one thing, take care of everything. If somebody forces you to resolve one issue by going 1 mile, keep going. Don't just resolve what's there. Take it upon yourself to resolve it all, to change your life. You are on target for the kingdom of heaven within. Nobody else is going to go there for you. If you want to go there, this is the instruction book right here. You must resolve all of it. Yeah, that's what it's telling us. Okay, I've gone back and reworked this down here about the 1 mile and the second mile. I changed it to, and if anyone forces you to go 1 mile, go also the second mile. If anything causes you to travel down a road, go all the way down that road. Okay, so I realize it fits with a theme here. You have heard it was said, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. Make sure that, if somebody does something wrong, then whenever you punish them, make sure it's equal. If they steal a goat from you, you steal a goat from them, you get a goat back from them. That's in its simplest form, something like that. I'm sure it gets much more severe, but that's what they're talking about. If somebody takes your goat, you don't destroy his house and kill his family and do things like that. That's not equitable. Okay, so they're trying to be fair. Treat people fairly. If somebody does something bad, treat them bad in the same way back and let them know what they've done. All right, but he's saying that would be the physical world, right? That's the right way to live in the physical world. He's transitioning it here. But I say to you, Right there it transitions from outward looking to inward looking. Do not resist an evildoer. Suddenly we've got something else. Again, we know that an evildoer on the outside might just kill you or enslave you. Why would you not resist somebody doing something like that? Loving them and saying, I love you, I love you, I love you is going to make them just, do what? They're not going to go, oh, well, by golly, we're just going to let you go back to what you were doing. Life doesn't really work that way. Okay, so you have to, it can't work in the physical world. This one has to, this one can't. Not unless you put caveats with it. Do not resist an evildoer. Unless they keep being evil, then you might have, then it's a worthless statement if you look at it in the physical world. Okay, but if anyone strikes you on the right cheek, turn the other also. So now that we know that we've turned inward, this is what it's saying. Stop fighting ourselves. But I say stop denying your inner hurt. Do not fight against your inner hurt as it emerges. See it as as it's a part of you. Now look at 3 times in a row. It's going to tell us the same teaching. If anyone wants to sue you and take your shirt, give your coat as well. If it emerges, resolve what causes it to cycle and resolve everything else too. And if anyone forces you to go 1 mile, go also the 2nd mile. If anything causes you to travel down a road, go all the way down that road. Give to the one who asks you, and do not refuse anyone who wants to borrow from you. Give in to what emerges. This does not mean leaving them alone or allow them to be just as they are. It means to stop fighting them and realizing they are now residing within you. Fighting against them only makes them grow in the same manner that we fight against them. Okay, there we go. Tighten that one up pretty good. I'm pretty happy with that. You see that difference there? And you know what? If you go back and look at these, I say that they're going to be interactive. You can see that I've still left them in somewhat analogous form. If it emerges, resolve what causes it to cycle and resolve everything else too. That's actually pretty plain language. We're talking about the things that emerge from us that we don't like, that later we go, God, I don't like that. It doesn't make me feel good. Whatever it is that prevents us from that kingdom of heaven within, anything, we want to resolve it. So this is pretty plain language. This one says, if anything causes you to travel down a road, go all the way down that road. This is very analogous. That does not sound like you have to know that I haven't converted this to an interactive step yet. It's still analogous. Traveling down a road means going down a pathway in life that something else caused you to travel down. You are being forced down something that you don't want to go all the way down that road. So it's actually teaching the same thing. If anything forces you to have some sort of an experience in life, then go resolve it all. This may not be the best way to put it, but anyway, you see what I'm talking about between it being mentally interactive or still in analogous form. At some point you can see it is right in the mind. At some point you go, this is still about me. It is still about my mind. Give in to what emerges. That's coming. That doesn't mean I'm going to get angry and scream and yell and start punching holes in the wall again. I'm just going to give into it. It doesn't mean to just do it. No, that's not what this means. It's doing that because of the things that we don't have resolved, and the anger and the hatred that we have, the shame, everything else that we have against it is the reason it is happening. We have to know that. We have to stop fighting against what we hate that is within us because we are making it that way. Resolving the ought against your brother to have your life become better is exactly the other side of the way this sounds, isn't it? This is resolving the ought. Fighting against them makes them grow in the same manner we fight against them. So the ought happened because of an experience. There was a seed planted, but it continues to grow because of what we feed it mentally. You have heard that it was said, you shall love your neighbor and hate your enemy. We recognize these now in Jesus' work as something different. These are a different style. You have heard that it was said, but I say to you. You have heard that it was said, but I say to you. You have heard that it was said, but I say to you. These are all following a pattern of, this is what was said in the past, but here is what there is now. He's really simply updating the verbiage. Okay. And also, if you look at this, you have heard that it was said, you shall love your neighbor and hate your enemy. Well, yeah, that's what it was said to live. Yeah, there were certainly enemies, and people were killed, and needed to be destroyed. But I say to you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you, so that you may be children of your Father in heaven. For he makes his sun rise on the evil and on the good, and sends rain on the righteous and on the unrighteous. For if you love those who love you, what reward do you have? Do not even the tax collectors do the same? And if you greet only your brothers and sisters, what more are you doing than others? Do not even the Gentiles do the same? Here's the teaching. Be perfect, therefore, as your heavenly Father is perfect. Okay, so let's go ahead and dissect all of this, though. There are some analogs in here, and we can get some meaning out of this. Okay, first we have that one from the past. You shall love your neighbor and hate your enemy. Okay, we know when we're on the internal path, we stop the hatred. We need to. We already have the hatred. So I'm not going to do any changes to that one. Here on 44, I'm just trying to word it different, but instead, love your enemies. The enemies are what? From within. But instead, if you can love what you hate, that'll change it. That's not an easy thing to do, but I'm just saying that if that's the idea, love your hated issues, but instead love your hated issues and pray for those who persecute you. Praying is resolving. Resolving that those who persecute you, that which acts out. Okay, so up here it's telling us to be peaceful on it. Oops, I got it in the wrong thing. I'm not making notes, I'm just doing a conversion here. But instead, love your hated issues. Praying, resolving, praying for what are you doing when you're praying for something? You're looking for resolve. So when we're praying for something, that is us actively doing that, where we're mixing our higher awareness with our hurt and our conscious all together. We're working on resolving that. But instead, love your hated issues and love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you, praying for and resolve that which acts out. I'm just going to change this out and I get that out. Yeah. This is how it grows. But instead, love your hated issues, resolving that which acts out. And hurts life. That's the persecution. So that you may be children of your Father in heaven. Okay, the Father in heaven is who? The higher awareness that exists outside of our emotion. We want to be children of, we can't be the Father in heaven. We cannot be the higher self. We are the consciousness that has to bring in the Father into our conscious awareness. We have to allow and work within that. So we want to be children of that. For he makes the sun rise on the evil and on the good and sends rain on the righteous and on the unrighteous. This was covered earlier, actually, where it says you can, I will bless those who bless you and curse those who curse you. Father in heaven, he makes his sun rise on the evil and on the good and sends rain on the righteous and on the unrighteous. It doesn't matter who you are. God is the upper, the energy where things emerge from. When we are consciously not paying attention, we are using that energy to create what we don't want. We're unaware of that. Now we have to manipulate what that is. So what we have to do, those are the enemies. The enemies are the things that we need to resolve, and praying for them is because they persecute us is what we have to do. And we want to do that by becoming really mental offspring, or not really that, but being someone who exists well within the higher awareness and understands how to get there. For God may, because good and bad come from, because no matter what, it comes from, we just have to shift and get into the right way. We have to love our enemies and change the way we view them. There we go. For Father, everything happens from the Father. Okay, there we go. But instead, love your hated issues, resolving that which acts out and hurts your life. May live through the higher awareness for what do I call that? I want to call it the cosmos, cosmic energy, the sum of all what we are, energy. Let's just call it energy, because no matter what it is, even if it's supernatural, it's going to be energy, right? Okay, we'll call it energy. We cover everything that way. Let me say that we may live through our higher awareness for energy, good or bad, for us. And that actually, that's all we have to say. For energy creates good or bad for us. Yeah, that's it right there. For he makes sun rise on the evil and on the good, and sends rain on the righteous and on the unrighteous. For energy creates good or bad for us. Yeah, okay. That's simple. We are creating it. We need to love what is hurting us. What we hate. That's fine. Okay, for if you love those who love you, what reward do you have? Okay, what I want to say here on this number 46, it shifted back from inward to back to outward. It's like a two-step thing. This is outward, then there's inward, then there's outward, then there's inward again. Okay, so if you love those who love you, what reward do you have? It's just asking. This is telling us everybody's the same way. Everybody gets the same results in life. And the Gentiles, who are the Gentiles? The Gentiles are anybody that is not on the path. The way the material is held by whoever is carrying this version is calling themselves a Jew, and a Gentile is anybody that is not one of the Jews. No matter who you are a Gentile. That means a non-Jew. No matter where in the world you come from, you're a Gentile if you're not a Jew. So on the template, what we have is that the Jew that is us on the path, and the Gentile is anyone not on the path. So this is telling us that everything works good or bad for anybody, no matter what. The good or bad happens, that God provides the same thing to anybody, regardless of the way that they are, whether they are good or whether you like them, or whether they're tax collectors or anything like that. It's letting us know that we're all the same, and that we come from that place. It goes on, and this is the lesson then. Be perfect, therefore, as your Heavenly Father is perfect. Heavenly Father is perfect, can create anything. What we need to know is that we can create anything. Have all issues resolved, though. The Heavenly Father is the higher awareness. Perfect would mean, I said have all issues resolved. The Heavenly Father doesn't have issues. The Heavenly Father just provides whatever you want to create whatever it is you decide upon. You say what you want, but it's not really what you want. It's what you decide upon. If I say, oh my gosh, this hurt me, I am ashamed, you've just created that. That is no longer perfection. We are getting caught up in emotions, and the higher awareness, aka the Heavenly Father, is not caught up in that. Okay, let's go ahead and bring that one to an end. Finished off that chapter, and the video got long again. I wasn't as prepared this time, so I worked some as I went along, and you just kind of see how I go through the interpretation process. And that it can go pretty quick, but I have to kind of think it through. I have to put the pieces and parts in my mind. I have to process it. Then you move on, and then it seems like something comes to you afterwards, and you go, oh, wait a minute, I got a better idea. So when I make a video, you don't always see the growth process like that. You'll see me read through some of the stuff like I don't know what I've written. I do that ahead of time, and I go through things, and I'm not always right on top of it. I reread it later. You can see it's pretty preliminary, but I think it's pretty spot on. It's very, at this point, it's just textual stuff. It's very repetitive going through it all. Let me go ahead and cover what we did in this video real quick. I'll just read through I won't read through the whole current plain language interpretation of the Sermon on the Mount, but I'll just read what we covered in this video. Let's go ahead and do that. Okay, check this out. I want to show you something that I find in here. This is that growth I'm talking about. This one seemed odd to me as I went through the love for enemies. It's like it goes from outwards to inward, but then it jumped back to outward again and went to inward. It's like, God, that's a strange thing. And as you look at it, you realize, you know what they've done? They've broken up the verse. I've taken this entire thing, copied it, and pasted it onto a different page. Let's take a look at something here. Okay, it's super analysis time. Let's check this out. What I'm going to do is, this is the love for enemies, the entire section. First, let me take out my plain language interpretation. There we have it. We have it restored to normal. Now what I'm going to do is restore it a little bit further to normal. I'm going to take out the verses. They were not originally there. They were added in later. They came about as the result of work by the Archbishop of Canterbury, Stephen Langton. Then as I read it, I get a flow in my head. If I read this, you have heard it was said, you shall love your neighbor and hate your enemy. For if you love those who love you, what reward do you have? That this is outward, as I interpret it. Then this next section here is inward. Then this interprets right here as outward again. And this interprets as inward. So it has that funny flow to it where it jumps out, in, out, in. But I'm going to do something here. I'm going to take this section right here, and I'm going to just move it down here. I've seen this technique elsewhere in the Bible. And the dual verses in the book of Luke and the Sermon on the Plain. Anyway, this isn't a dual verse, but let's look at this now. Let's see what we have come up with. I'm going to put these together as two pieces like this and not separate ones. Okay. You have heard that it was said, you shall love your neighbor and hate your enemy. For if you love those who love you, what reward do you have? Do not even the tax collectors do the same? And if you greet only your brothers and sisters, what more are you doing than others? Do not even the Gentiles do the same? But I say to you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you, so that you may be children of your Father in heaven. For he makes his sun rise on the evil and on the good, and sends rain on the righteous and on the unrighteous. Be perfect, therefore, as your heavenly Father is perfect. Do you see how they fit like that? Like they're supposed to go that way? It seems to me like, yeah, that would be how it is. But you break it out, spread it out, you make it trickier to find it's trickier to find, but you know what? You can find it, put it together, look at it, read it, analyze it, see what fits. When you play it in the mind, it comes into play. When you don't play it out in the mind, you don't see those things. When you do and you interpret it, you go, hey, look at, they've got it jumbled up. Okay, we started off with concerning oaths. I'll just read there through the end of the chapter. We have learned from antiquity not to make promises to God without keeping them. But further, do not make any false conscious promises to yourself. This would include, for example, maintaining intentions that are never fulfilled, existential suffering, desire to change but never changing, and so suffering as a result. We don't know what to do. This is like take no thoughts of tomorrow or live in the moment. We habituate failure when we practice it. Physical. This verse combination went from do not swear by heaven to earth to head. The entire set is telling us not to make promises in any manner about change and then not follow through. Commit and stick to the commitment. Do not be wishy-washy. Do or don't, and do not live with the internal conflict of a failure cycle. Yeah, commit. The teachings from old say balance justice evenly, but I say stop denying your inner hurt. Do not fight against the inner hurt as it emerges. See it as you realize it's a part of you. If it emerges, resolve what causes it to cycle and resolve everything else too. If anything causes you to travel down a road, go all the way down that road. The presumption is that it won't continue to cause you to travel down that road if we rectify it. Give in to what emerges. This does not mean leaving them alone or allowing them to be as they are. It means stop fighting them and realizing they are now residing within you. Fighting against them makes them grow in the same manner that we fight against them. But instead, love your hated issues, resolving all of those things which act out and hurts life, so that we may live through the higher awareness. For energy creates good or bad for us. You have heard it said to love your neighbor and hate your enemy, but what good is that to you? They are rewarded and punished exactly the same way as you. And if you only accept certain people, what good is that? Non-seekers do that. But instead, love your hated issues, resolving all of those things which act out and hurt our quality of life, so that we may live through the higher awareness. Energy creates good or bad for us. Have all the issues resolved. All right, this is actually the entire, if you go up here from the Beatitudes all the way down through so far. So anyway, I'm not sure how far to continue on going with it. There's still a couple of chapters left. I should do it just for the academic completion of it, to make sure that it's at least there's a record on the table somewhere. I'm ready to move on to something else. These get pretty dry, don't they? They certainly do. All right. Well, hope it was interesting to anybody who's paying attention. If not, that's cool too. Somebody will come along, I think someday maybe, and have an interest. Perhaps, I don't know. Bibles that are getting made more and more are being changed. They're being modified, and this material is being lost. We're losing it in the Bible. I don't think people that are making the modifications, the Christians, they have no idea it's there. So you can't use their Bibles. What they're doing is preaching the return of Jesus as something out there that's coming back. They're not teaching the return of Jesus as something in here that comes back when you follow the path. So that entire path is being lost by those who don't know it's there and don't want it to be there. They want something else. Anyway, hope this was informational. Take care, and I'll see you in the next video.